Can you hear me? Good, good, good.
I can. Can you hear me? Sorry,
Hello, Shosan. Good.
hi. It's good to see you. Let me get out of Firefox. I'm trying to get rid of everything that isn't this meeting. To see if I can make the sound quality better. And I want to say that if the wireless gets cut off, then I'll come back in a different incarnation in a different room. Okay?
Right now, you're loud and clear. We hear you fine.
Okay, let's see. You can spotlight me, but I'm going to spotlight you. Okay.
We're going to start in about a minute. Thank you so much for being here. This is lovely.
I feel honored.
Oh, this is the first in a series of the teachers from the book that are going to continue through January of next year. And everyone has been so lovely to come. You're really our first guest here. And if I may say, it's a very good start. Thank you.
Thanks. Oh, look who's here. I'm just looking and seeing who's here. Is there anything I should know about anyone? One of the things I want to encourage you to do is if you need to change position and move or take care of yourself in any way, please do. Okay?
Let me first introduce you and say a little about tonight. And also, I'll invite everyone. We'll sit a couple of minutes of Zazen at the beginning just to put the heart right. And then I will turn everything over to Shosan. But this is the first in a series of talks that we will be having in the coming months, going right into 2024, actually, for this book, which is Zen Teachings in Challenging Times, which is a book that should be read by all serious Zen students and needs to be well known. It is the story of each teacher's encounter with the hardships of life. Sometimes it's social problems. Sometimes it's the great issues of the world. Sometimes it's very personal. And that is what we have tonight. It is my honor to present Shosan Victoria Austin, who is here as our first guest at Treeleaf. And for all of you, her story is beautiful and hard and brings smiles and tears and encouragement and amazement all at the same time. I hope you've all had a chance to read it, but there's a saying in Japanese, get knocked down 7 times, get up 8. And Victoria's story certainly is an example of that. Sometimes you get up a little slower the second time or the third time, but you get up. And that is what I hope you are left with tonight. But before that's enough, Victoria is from the San Francisco Zen Center, a very respected teacher. We're honored to have her here tonight. Hello, hello, Shosan, can you hear me?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, we're gonna sit just a minute or two of Zazen, and then I will turn everything over to you. I'll just ring the bell. Everyone just sit or recline or be just as you are. And as Shosan said, if you need to move, do as your body needs. And now, Shosan, I turn everything over to you. Thank you again for being here.
Everything?
Everything.
Everything? Okay, so there's so many ways in which this conversation could go. So I need to edit because I have about, a year of material stored up. If I started speaking now and spoke continuously without taking time to sleep. So let's edit it to what you would like to hear. So I'd like to start by taking 3 questions or comments, and then I'll pick up and speak about the Dharma and about my book, my article there, from there. So I'm just wondering if anyone has a comment or a question, an observation. Yes?
If that's the case, let me also mention that anyone who has a question who's watching at home one way, if you write me at jundotreeleaf@gmail.com, I'll read some of the questions and hopefully Shosan will have time to answer.
Yeah, so I'm just going to hear questions without responding, 3 of them, if you have them. I see a Koku has raised a hand. Yeah.
Hi, Shosan. Thank you so much for coming. I first read this book a couple of years ago, and your chapter was one of the ones that really spoke to me. I've been practicing with chronic illness for 27 years now, and it was my entry point into the Dharma. And what I found has changed in my journey is my condition has gone from practicing with a condition that seemed to be improving to practicing with a condition which is either static or declining. And reading about your journey with recovery, I think there was points where you probably had bits of both. Sometimes you were recovering, sometimes it seemed like you didn't know whether you were going to recover or not. And I'm just wondering if there was a difference between practice, what practice looked like at times when you felt you were recovering, and what practice looked like at times you thought, I know maybe things were hopeless, or you thought this is it forever. Was there a difference, or was practice just practice? Thank you.
Let's take a moment to let that settle in. Because there's a Dharma question if ever I heard one. Okay, so a couple more questions or comments just to orient the talk to reality. It can be anything. Naiko. You need. Hi.
I am extremely intrigued by what I think many people who read the essay feel. It's how skillfully you applied the 3 pure precepts in your practice. And I'm just wondering if those particular precepts held a special place for you before your injuries, or it's just, we study them every year. And I have to say that your essay left me with a completely different, more expansive view of those precepts than I had before, because normally I just put them sort of out, as an activity that was going outward from me, my actions in the world, not that plus my actions toward myself and my attitude. So I just find that especially intriguing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Naiko-san. And let's just take that in for a minute. And do we have one more question or comment to work with for this morning? Can be anything. Yes, Paul.
How about sharing about your present state of physical, emotional, spiritual being? I'm just curious, after all the things you've been through and surgeries and recoveries, and I just want to know how you're doing today.
Thank you so much. Yeah, okay. And let's just take that in for a minute. And please, everybody, consider, each person, consider that question, as well as the other two. Both what you do when it seems hopeless, and what do you do with the 3 pure precepts? How do you take them? And how are you today? Okay, so these, oddly enough, these 3 questions transmit, are part of the transmission of the precepts. And in Dogen Zenji's Kyoju Kaimon, he discusses 3 types of refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I want to apply those 3 types of 3 refuges to 3 types of pure precepts. Okay, the first type of 3 pure precepts I'd like to remind you of is the single-bodied pure precepts. That goes, of course, with the single-bodied triple treasure. It's the world of oneness, the world of the Dharmakaya, the world of things as it is. So let's take that in for a minute. Oneness. You can read more about the precepts in Bodhidharma's teachings about the precepts. So Bodhidharma comes from self-nature being inconceivable and profound. And given its inconceivability and its profundity, that there is no evil, no good, and no beings to live and be lived for the benefit of. A totally ungrammatical sentence, but you know what I mean. That's called the single-bodied triple treasure. The single-bodied, I want to expand that to single-bodied pure precept. Okay, the second type of refuge is the manifested triple treasure. And that is our historical body. So the first one is our universal body, Dharmakaya. Second one is our historical body, Nirmanakaya, which has to do with what is the form, the shape, the literal shape that we're in now, based on our causes, conditions, our circumstances, and our actions. So it's our historical body that literally is genetically from our mother, our birth mother, our birth father, plus everything that happened to us and everything that we did is manifesting right here and right now in the form of traces. So for instance, if you do strength training, then your muscles are in different shape than if you don't. If you live in a city with high air pollution, Your lungs are different than they would be if you were living in the woods. So it's like the realm of three pure precepts, and it's it's our equipment, what we start with, and who we are at a very basic form level. That depends on our intention and our history. And the third level of refuge, which I like to bring up as the third level of pure precepts, is the maintained level, which corresponds to Sambhogakaya, Buddha, the shining practice, actually Sambhogakaya, shining practice Bodhisattva, which is the realm of skill. So if you read the Kyoju Kaimon, there's these precepts, and then there's these little conversational bits about how to take the precept, how to study it, how to practice with it in real life. And that's what I'm talking about. So for instance, let's say it's flooded in your neighborhood and the mice and rats come up through the drains and start infesting your home, and there's a baby in the house, and you remember that in the New York garbage strike, the rats jumped into strollers and attacked children. But you've received the precept of not killing. What do you do? I know this sounds a little bit like one of those children's books that give you a couple of possible actions, and you either get or don't get the prize at the end. But these choices are coming up to us all the time. And we can take each one as a test of our practice and as the sum total of our understanding of practice at the same time. And in skill, you're never done. There's always more, because practice is infinite in all three of those realms: the single body, the manifested, and the maintained. So in my case, what is single-bodied pure precepts? What is manifested and what is maintained? So I have to say that this question is not new. And the three questions that you have, of course, correspond perfectly to single-bodied, manifested, and maintained practice. And this expansion that Naiko-san was talking about is the realm of potential, which is brought up by our universal understanding that we sit with every day in Zazen. So we sit with stuff, and then suddenly it looks different. And that process of potential arising and things not being what they are, so they're exactly what they are, that's we call that emptiness, but it's more like fullness or potential. And that is the realm of Dharmakaya. Okay, and the realm of Nirmanakaya, or historical body, is like Paul's question: how are you? What's your present state of being? And then the question that Koku asked is more about skill, the maintained body. How's it arising now? So, oh no, today it's declining and I feel despair. Today it's improving and I feel elation. Is practice the same? Is there just, okay, this is it, so this is all the it there is, and so that's practice? Or is there something to be done? So that is a question of skill. So these three questions perfectly brought up the entire range of possibility of the three pure precepts. And I didn't pay them or, solicit these questions in any way. These are real questions that real, actual Dharma brothers and sisters have on the path with our own bodies and minds, which are 100% dross and 100% gold. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, so I want to talk about the moment of waking up in the hospital from the second accident. The second accident was the one in which I was I was done enough with my recovery to really be in a good state of hope. And then I was headed towards my last eye surgeon appointment. And on the way, this guy who was going home after a night shift, kind of lost it for a moment and ran a red light, a pedestrian, um, a pedestrian walk light. So he just spaced out for a minute and took the curve very quickly. And I was still slow and stupid from the first accident. And so I saw it coming, but I couldn't get away. And then nothing, blank, bam, nothing. And I woke up in the hospital with someone holding a clipboard in front of me and asking me to sign. And the clipboard was an acknowledgement of approximately $750,000 of expenses that I had incurred with my level 1 ICU trauma care. And of course, I was completely doped up. I didn't even think about it. I just signed. And then over the next few hours, I began to feel the state I was in. So it wasn't the kind of state that would give you hope that you would ever recover. And doctors were saying things like that. And I also had difficulty understanding them because of the large amounts of opioids and anti-seizure medication and, kind of induced tranquility that was going on. And, but somehow through that fog, Zazen, I had been practicing for 38 years at that time, I think 38 years, something like that. Zazen reminded me of itself somehow. And I felt called to sit. I couldn't sit because I was broken, physically broken. And I was dealing with this kind of foggy but completely pervasive sense of this is it. Now I'm going to be bedbound for the rest of my life. Doctors were saying stuff like that. This is it. And I didn't have any enlightenment experience or any sense of a hope to hold on to. But somehow my body thought Zazen. And so I asked the nurse to, you know how they block you in where you're kind of sideways in a fetal position, away from the side that has the most breaks. And they kind of prop you up so that you're going to be on that side, and then eventually they turn you so that you don't get sores and stuff like that. So they had me propped in a semi-fetal position. And I asked them instead to do something that they at first weren't sure about, which was to take the pillows and have pillows running down the length of my torso to open my chest, and then pillows under my arms and a neck roll for my neck. Anyway, we finally figured that out. It was in the wee hours of the morning. And I began to do Zazen. And you know how when you first learn how to do Zazen, it feels like you're never going to be able to concentrate or develop stillness in your body. So let's say you remember to concentrate at this moment, and then, excuse me for being off camera, the next time you remember to concentrate is like far in the future, right? So there's big spaces between split seconds of concentration, and in between is a lot of other stuff, or it feels like other stuff. And then eventually the moments become the moments of concentration become closer and closer, and there might be spaces of concentration and spaces of non-concentration. And then eventually, if you do this for enough years and have enough difficulties and sit through them and without being violent to yourself, eventually concentration links up moment by moment, and you are concentrated. And you can use that concentration to study the human condition. This is called Shikan, as in Shikan Taza, or stopping and seeing, Shamatha Vipassana. And she is just, those red signs that are six-sided, have big white letters on them? That's what she means. And kan means, when people do this. So shikan is stopping and seeing. And so that first night, I was in a fog. Maybe there was one split second of concentration, a lot of muzziness. But I did it, and it also hurt because just to open up after being smushed into the fetal position was physically difficult. And I also kept having thoughts like, this is it. This is the first moment of my death. And, but the next night, that first night, my nurse, my intensive care nurse, sat with me for about 5 minutes. And the next night, there were 6 nurses in my room. And somehow the combined presence of those nurses created a zendo of my little curtain-wrapped cubicle. And the other aspects of life and living and giving life began to make themselves known. It wasn't like I knew them, it was that they were making themselves known in this new body and mind. And what I learned was a form of, zero-based budgeting, where there's various ways we can make budgets. But zero-based budgeting is really interesting because you clear away all your assumptions and you just list every possible bit of income and every possible bit of expense that you project. Well, I started doing zero-based healing in every moment. Zero-based healing means being with the historical condition or the condition that's manifesting in body, speech, and mind today. Whatever that historical or conventional body is, whatever that historical and conventional mind is, whatever that historical and conventional ability to express myself is. And finding the ability to do shikan in that position until ta-za occurs. Shikan ta-za means stopping and seeing. Sitting and so my definition of Zazen greatly changed. And I learned that I really hadn't understood the three pure precepts at all. So there's a story about this in our tradition. There was this teacher who used to sit in a tree. And because of that, his community called him Bird's Nest Roshi. And the governor of the province was interested in meditation, but he didn't have much time. So he walked to the tree and, Bird's Nest Roshi, Bird's Nest Roshi. Yes. What's the most important thing on the path? What's the most what is most important teaching? Can you give it to me? Stop doing bad, do good, purify the mind. Bird's Nest Roshi. What? Stop doing bad, do good, purify the mind. But wait a second. Stop doing bad, do good, purify the mind. Bird's Nest Roshi. What? What is it? You know, that's so, what a dumb teaching. A 2-year-old would know that. Yeah, that's true. 2-year-old would know that. But an 80-year-old hasn't fathomed it. Okay. So I'd also like to point out this mind training in it. It's kind of an insighty way, and then I want to go back to a concentration-y sort of way to work with it. But this is a case in the Book of Serenity where a monk comes to study with the great teacher Yangshan. And Yangshan says, he welcomes him by saying, "Where are you from?" And the monk says, "You province." You province. Valley Street, New York. No, actually, Queens, New York. Okay. Do you think of that place often? Always. I always think of it. The thinker is the mind. The thought of is the environment. Herein are mountains, rivers, the great earth, people, animals, everything you could think of. Now tell me, when you get to this place, how is it for you? What do you see? when I get here, I don't see anything at all. This is okay for the stage of faith, but it's not okay for the stage of person. Huh? Don't you have any teaching for me? Huh? Don't you have any particular teachings for me? No, to say I have a particular teaching or not wouldn't be appropriate. Based on what you've brought me, you only get one mystery. You can wear the robe. You can sit, use the bowls. But after this, see on your own. So I'm bringing up this second story. I mean, the first one's really obvious about obvious connection to the story in the book, but this one about mind and environment is very interesting because it talks about developmental practice. What happens when you take things at face value or are in the world of words and teachings, and what happens when you really penetrate the way in all of its beauty and richness. And so I think it's an important story because it points out that we change over time, that practice changes us, and that the realm of practice is the realm of mystery of the self and the world. And Dongshan summarizes it quite beautifully. So Dongshan was the founder of our school. He's the To of Soto in Soto Zen. And so when Dongshan's teacher was getting old, he said, "It's time." And Dongshan was sad and asked his teacher what he wanted, how he wanted to be remembered. And the teacher said, "Just this." And Dongshan didn't get it. And then he packs up his stuff and he starts leaving because the teacher's kicking him out. He doesn't want to go. Teacher's kicking him out. And he gets to the stream that's right outside the monastery gate. And he sees his face in the water and has a huge experience. And he spontaneously says, "Don't see the world or yourself as an object, or far from it you stray. Today as I walk alone, whichever way I turn, I meet myself. It's just me. I'm not it. If you understand that you as an object is not you yourself, then you have your own true way." So this might sound a little bit theoretical, but basically what I'm saying is that the moment you can establish the three bodies of the three pure precepts in ourselves, this very simple practice, the moment we can give honor to the ultimate that we're 100% made of, the relative that we're 100% made of, and the skillful function that we're 100% made of, then subject and object, ideas of good and bad, ideas of meaning become less relevant to us. And we can practice in a way that gives life instead of some way that's about what we've heard. So that's why I bring up these stories and the whole process of my recovery. Recovery is not done. I'm living in the fairy tale, which I think Koku will understand. I'm living in the fairy tale where, you know, as soon as the sun rises, the girl turns into an old woman. And then when the sun set and the moon rises, the girl can dance in the clearing, right? We have no idea how these moments of function come about, and then we have to do our best through millions of repetitions every single day, or it just deteriorates at a much faster pace. So I have to recreate my entire recovery every day, and sometimes it gets done according to my standards, and sometimes it doesn't. And the problems weren't just the problems that you read about in the article. There's this whole social aspect that happens when people think that you're catastrophically disabled and begin to kind of shun you out of discomfort. So then that recovery, because it relates to Sangha, the support of Sangha, um, the whole understanding of having real allies who actually get you. Not to be understood there is an even bigger betrayal than the mortality of one's own body. And yet we have to practice it with it. We have to understand it not objectively, but subjectively, moment after moment, not creating further harm, identifying harm, the causes and conditions, and the circumstances, and how we act to create harm. We have to practice with it at that historical level. We have to practice at the ultimate level, the level of potential. And we have to practice skill. And I actually, I want to bring up this guy, Brian, who I helped in the 1980s. And Brian had AIDS. And Brian's kidneys and liver failed. And so he was only going to live for at most another few days. His body was really swollen, and he couldn't even go to the bathroom, eat, or consistently breathe. And I was sitting with Brian, as I sat with a lot of the young men at that time, one after another. And Brian said, could you teach me yoga? I'm so uncomfortable. Could you teach me yoga? And so I kind of gulped and I said, yes. But Brian couldn't do anything. So what I did was I taught his nurses different pillow arrangements, which actually were going to come in very handy 30 years later when I needed them. But I taught different pillow arrangements to the nurses, and Brian was able to enter a state of concentration. And Brian discovered a whole level of forgiveness and practice that he had never known about before. He was able to accomplish it, to do his own homework, and to go into his death not happily, but peacefully. And I think that's what we have to do every day. And eventually, that's what we have to do on every exhalation. Every moment, a new body arises. Every moment, it goes away. And we have to live there without denying the reality of our entire historical existence. So that's where the recovery comes from, moment after moment. And how I am now is, under normal circumstances, people don't even know that anything happened to me. They think I'm younger, much younger than I am, and that I'm privileged to have a good body or whatever. But actually, every day I'm dealing with 32 medical conditions that interact. Including 3 types of vertigo and dizziness, which are constantly an issue. And, sorts of problems that were mentioned in the article. And what they've actually done is they've given me a kind of postdoc in yoga teaching and Zazen, the safe container aspects of Zazen. So I'm going to stop now, and we can discuss whatever we want. Okay? And please excuse me, I didn't go over the article. For anyone who hasn't read it, please feel free to read it. I was more talking about the post-article world of practice that I work with every day. So, comments, questions, observations, reactions. You know, I appreciate it. If something irritated you or was irrelevant for you, I want to hear that. Okay. Creative dissonance is a Jindo knows all about it. Yeah.
I'd like to remind folks, if anyone's watching at home, they would like to send me an email with a question at jundotreeleaf@gmail.com. I'll read it. If I may, we had one while you were speaking. It actually connects to the story you were just telling about Brian. I'm going to shorten it a little, and the writer would like to be anonymous. Basically, I've had a spinal injury from an accident and have been in physical therapy for many weeks. It's very cold, it's very expensive, and some morning it's just hard for me to continue. I just want to stop and quit. I'm shortening a little.
Yeah.
And how do you keep going? I don't want to keep going. I'm just lose hope sometimes. What keeps you going at times like that? That's the question.
Yeah. Okay. So instead of answering the question right away, I would like to ask the 17 people who are visible and the many people who are invisible to, if you know how to use the thumbs up function or the wave function or the heart function on your computer, or if you want to make a gesture of support, anyone who's willing to support the asker of this question as an ally, please show your support right now in some way. Thank you. Yeah, so sometimes it's like, so I want to ask the asker of the question, did you see that or feel that? Yeah, okay. So everyone in the room is with you. Stanford nurses initiated a study that about prayer because they noticed that people who were prayed for mysteriously did better than people who weren't prayed for. The results were mildly positive and conclusive, but I think the nurses were onto something. We feel that. And I want to say that I think the study was flawed because it was measuring objective variables that meant success to them. But we have a lot more tools in our Zen toolbox to understand our success than the medical world does. So we don't judge the value of our life by whether our cholesterol numbers go down by 3 points or whether our range of motion increases by 4 degrees. And those are the kinds of variables that are acknowledged in medical studies. That so what I want to say is we have more variables that we can work with. So what keeps me going? So this I tend to use the Enmei-juku Kannon-gyo, which reminds me of the years of Avalokiteshvara, morning, noon, and night. So Enmei-juku Kannon-gyo is Kanzeon, hearer of the cries of the world. Homage to Buddha or awakening. Buddha's intrinsic, Buddha's expressive. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha are the expression. In the morning, we Nen Kanzeon. Nen is an interesting character because the top of the character means now, today, now. The bottom of the character means heart. So our understanding of, it's not think of Kanzeon or remember Kanzeon or anything like that. It's an untranslatable word, which includes all of our practice of bringing to heart and mind in the present something that's eternally pure and bright. So in the morning, Nen Kanzeon, in the evening, Nen Kanzeon. Purity, stillness, ease, joy. And thought, memory or remembrance after remembrance arises in the mind, small mind, remembrance after remembrance is not separate from big mind or environment. So I use the Enmei-juku Kannon-gyo as a kind of walking mantra for recovery. So if I'm really in trouble, I'll recite it a lot. And because I've been using the Enmei-juku Kannon-gyo in this way, every time I sit with someone who's sick or dying, to return them to their process, their selfhood, their process, and their potential. Because I've used that continuously for such a long time, it carries more meaning and more encouragement than year after year. So I use the Enmei-juku Kannon-gyo or another mantra that I've been working with for a long time as kind of a marching song for recovery that brings up the spirit of recovery moment after moment for me. And I kind of feel like I don't have the luxury of allowing despair to boss me around. That either this is it or I can live. Either I'm done or I can live. It's pretty stark. So if I let despair boss me around, I would do something that I wouldn't be very happy with the last moment of my life. And this is actually very true with people I work with who are sick and dying. A lot of times the difficulty and pain of the death process focuses them on their actual practice and goals, like Brian. And so I think that we can allow that pain to help us with the penetrative aspects of practice. First aspects are the waves, the mind waves or the differences in life. But then deeper than that is the penetrative aspects of practice, to boldly go where no man has gone before, you know. And then finally, the settling or peaceful aspects of practice. Practice goes from um, an outer form of dealing with despair, like physical therapists and psychologists, to an inner one where we take up the work and the responsibility, to a developmental process that matures us spiritually and in many possible ways. I hope that helps. It's really hard. But I would encourage you to go the distance with your physical therapy and then realize that physical therapy is just an education process for the actual recovery. It has limits. So the physical therapy will help, but then you have to take up those practices as your responsibility for recovery. And they're going to change as your condition changes. Thank you for your question. Yeah, Lori, you're going to, or are you just leaning forward? Gendo-san.
Another
Hey
question?
there.
Oh, sorry.
I don't really have a question. I just want to say I really appreciated your story about the man with AIDS. I forgot his name.
Right,
Many
okay.
apologies there, but I could really relate to that because in the late 90s, I lived in San Francisco, right across from Dolores Park. And I was a Franciscan then, and we did a lot of night ministry and dealt with a lot of people with AIDS. And what you said at the end, like he didn't die happily, but he died with peace. When we did a lot of the outreach and the hospice care and stuff like that, that's what we tried to do, but we really couldn't do that. And I was glad that you were able to give that patient that comfort, that peace at the end.
Yeah, well, it wasn't just me. Myaku Dennis Leahy is the he's the abbot of Hartford Street Zendo, and his brother is a Catholic priest. And I called him in to give final unction to Brian as well. So we met Brian in various ways that helped him. I think this is part of it. Like, do we dare to give ourselves the dignity and the honoring response to our various conditions? As Naiko said, it's the three pure precepts are easy to apply externally, but our practice doesn't necessarily give us the means to apply them to ourselves. And yet, the study of ahimsa, if we do apply it to ourselves, will take us all the way through the stages of friendliness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, and give us the heart teachings that we so deeply desire and request. So, saying to be friendly with our condition, to actually turn towards it instead of away from it, to care about it, to with a heart and mind of welfare for ourselves, is to acknowledge that our entire body and mind isn't just mind, it's also environment. So if you think about it, the human body is a collection of disparate groups that have learned over millions of years how to cooperate and work with each other. And when we have conditions, those cooperative agreements are all messed up. And there's a state of disregard or sometimes war. Our internal economy has been shattered. And that's part of what's so painful. that, let's say, you always could stand, but now you fall down. And nothing, and then, so of course you try harder to stand, which messes you up psychologically and physiologically. So, but no, that's not the path. We have to be friendly to that condition, which doesn't mean just succumbing to it. It means actually caring for the welfare of the whole being, the condition, and the part that is holding the condition. And then I think in the four Mahabrahma Viharas, friendliness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, they're usually taught as like separate steps and stages. But I think of friendliness and equanimity. Friendliness is the potential. It's the shunyata, emptiness action of the heart that makes the other steps possible. Equanimity, or a kind of an evenness of response, evenness of inquiry and response in body, speech, and mind, is what's being built. You know, even if there's just one moment here and one moment there. But I think of the compassion and the sympathetic joy, the karuna and mudita, as the content, the endless practice of being friendly in all sorts of in all sorts of conditions of pain or pleasure and achievement. So what we're practicing with is a kind of a constancy um, of friendly regard, in which we can examine each thing that comes up and allow it to educate us and give us an insight. And that's a kind of meditative healing that occurs whether we think we're well or whether we think we're dying. Suzuki Roshi, you know, he had stomach pain and he thought he had mono or something contagious. And he used to have this custom of sharing his dinner. And so he couldn't share his dinner. And Yvonne Rand told me this. And so the pain got really bad, and Mrs. Suzuki insisted that he go to the hospital and get a diagnosis. And the diagnostician said, after a while, this is inoperable stomach cancer. And Suzuki Roshi's response was to go home and share his dinner with Yvonne, because it wasn't contagious. So that's what I'm saying about using. And then a little later, he commented, things teach best when they're dying. So thanks. Thanks for the question. Thanks for the observation. And I don't mean to be so grim. It's not really like that. It's like, the question is, you know, my question to you is, this is the life that we have. And all of us, 100%, is Buddha nature. Can we honor that? Can we step back from ideas of gain and loss enough not to ignore, but to thoroughly take care of the condition, even if it takes like 22 hours a day? And know that everything that we do is imperfect. Nothing we do will actually cure it, but we can heal it. Okay, so I think I've blabbed on for a long time now, so um, maybe it's time.
Any last pressing question anyone has?
I'm on you.
Wave your hands like crazy if so.
I'm on just bow deeply, so.
Oh,
Oh,
Pam's waving like crazy.
hey, Pam. Yeah, Pam. Okay.
Good morning. So happy to be here. I sort of wandered in, or the Buddha must have led me in because I haven't read your books and I was on one of the sets and I thought, I got to go to that. So, your comment about making friends with your illness and your health issues really struck me because for the last 50 years, I've struggled with 2 chronic illnesses. And I've tried natural methods and it became really clear early on that if I wanted relief from these conditions, I had to go for powerful drugs. And so I've spent the last 50 years striving and going for treatment and being on a good drug for several years, and then it would stop working and having to have it come back. And so here I am at 70 years old. And a few weeks ago, the last drug in this group of drugs that would help me stop working.
Mm.
And so then the doctor said, I can't do anything.
Mm.
And it's not life-threatening, but it's a chronic illness that it's not nice to live with when it's rampant. And so that's where I'm at. And the last drug I did try, I reacted really bad, so I'm going through side effects, trying to get that out. So I've just been setting. I don't want to think about the future. I've spent so many years fighting it, wanting an answer, wanting my health to be good, and going from one treatment to the next. And suddenly I look back, and that's how I spent my time. But in the past couple of years, I've been doing more meditation and mindfulness and searching, which
Yeah.
leads me to Treeleaf and also Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings and a lot of different teachings. But I have to tell you, I feel like I'm at a crossroad. Can I do that? Can I become friends with this when I spent all these years fighting it? So that's my comment. And you've shared a lot of wisdom already that I really have felt is very, very powerful. So,
Well, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine. Actually, she's not living anymore because of some of the decisions she made about medication. And her name is Sure Darlene Cohen. Darlene Cohen wrote a lot of books about chronic pain and chronic conditions, and Doyu is familiar with them. So Darlene and I were friends, and Darlene was in her 30s when she was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis of the severe version, and she tried everything, you know. So and nothing worked, and she ended up going and seeing Meir Schneider, who cured himself of blindness using I think the Bates method and other methods um, of sight, mindfulness, and self-study. And so Darlene became a self-healing practitioner and teacher, and she started the Russian River Zendo. And she wrote a lot of books, and the books and her teaching were on suffering and delight. So one of the things that she points out is that, and she's still alive for me. I helped with her ordination and her Shuso time and her Dharma transmission, which she did with my Dharma brother. And one of her teachings is that in any moment of pain, there's 2 extremely painful and distracting bits and 98 not painful or distracting bits. And that's an example of her teaching. And she also did mobility exercises every single day. And she and I talked after my accident a lot, because she had made the decision to take a risky new drug that had a chance of giving her ovarian cancer, which she decided to do because she wanted the freedom, the mobility that it would provide to help her be with her grandchildren so that they could remember her. So she made that choice, and then she did get ovarian cancer, and she did die. And she gave Dharma transmission before she died. I helped her with that. But the thing that stands out for me in Darlene's life is the intense joy and love that continue to live for everyone who knew her. So I'm not saying that that's where you're headed. What I am saying is that the idea of learning how to manage one's levels of suffering and delight is incredibly important. And my teacher, Sojin Mel Weitzman, said it very succinctly one time when I was talking to him. He just kind of looked at me and then he said, "Vicky, could you please live your life in a way that's a little less horrible for you?" And I was very embarrassed. But then I said, okay. And then I realized, yeah, that's what the path is about, you know? Let's do this. Let's do this thing. I'll join you, you know. And again, everyone here is your Sangha. You're, what should I say? You're vulnerable but safe.
All right. Unless there's something very, very, very pressing.
Oh,
I,
yeah.
yes, Victoria, you have a question, please.
Oh, I have one thing. I just wanted to say that I thank you for the offer of the honorarium, which I declined. And
Yeah.
I just want to say something about the young man I've been trying to help, who's he's from a family in India that's not tolerant, and he discovered that he was gay and married a man, and then his family. It became clear that he was in danger from his family, both overtly and covertly. Um, a cousin of his died under mysterious circumstances after coming out. And he also was kind of beaten up and then put through conversion therapy. I'm trying to get him into San Francisco Zen Center's international student program under an M1 visa. And his first application was denied because Indian people from India don't succeed a lot when they try to get visas to come to the United States. So what I'm saying is, instead of an honorarium and instead of donations to me, if you want to give a small donation or a donation of any amount, I will pool them and use and send them to him. And he is right now, he got some work. He's earning $110 a month. And a visa application costs $160 for the application, 300 something dollars for the entry permit to the United States, and over $1,000 for airfare, and you have to have a bank account in your home country to prove that you're going to go back and stuff like that. So he could really use our help. And San Francisco Zen Center has been very generous with a program that's basically unfunded. So we're I have a group of myself and 4 other possible sponsors to try to help him through this process, no matter how long it takes. Anyway, that's my plug. I really appreciate it, but and also just like praying for somebody, if this sangha could somehow manage to send an e-card, I will forward it to him.
All who benefited today, you will find on our announcement for today's event in the Treeleaf Forum, a place, Reverend Austin's PayPal account, and also a mailing address if you want to send a check. Whatever you can, if you can, whatever you feel to help this young man who's seeking refuge. That would be our way of expressing gratitude to Reverend Austin today. So whatever you can and you think is appropriate, you'll find the instructions there where to send a little bit.
Yeah, and if money's not possible, if you want to email me and send me wishes for him, I'll forward them to him.
On that note, I will thank you so much. This was a lovely beginning of our introduction to this book. I hope everyone who was here tonight, if we'll read the book and all the other fine essays there. So many of the teachers, I think about 16 or 17 of the teachers will be coming to visit us in the weeks ahead, and it's all worthwhile. Shosan, your story is just inspirational, and right now I'm feeling in pretty good health, but the next time I'm not, tonight is going to get me through, I know. So thank you so much.
Thanks. Okay, take care of yourselves, okay? If something comes up afterwards, feel free to get in touch.
I will forward any emails we receive. Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay,
And I
take
wish you
care.
good morning, good night, wherever you are.
Okay, take care. Thank you. Thanks, Junda.
Thank you, Shosan.